China and India are two of the largest and most populous countries in the world, and they share a long and complex history. Despite being geographically close to each other, their relationship has been characterized by a mix of cooperation and rivalry, with both countries viewing each other as important strategic competitors in the region. In recent years, China has increasingly seen India as a major challenge in a number of respects. Border disputes. One of the most significant areas of tension between China and India is their border dispute. The two countries share a long and contested border, with each side laying claim to certain territories. The border dispute has led to a number of confrontations and skirmishes between Chinese and Indian forces, most recently in the Galwan Valley in 2020, which resulted in casualties on both sides. The unresolved border dispute is a major source of tension in the bilateral relationship and has the potential to escalate into a larger conflict. Geopolitical influence. China sees India as a significant competitor in terms of geopolitical influence in the region. As India's economy continues to grow and its strategic alliances with other countries strengthen, China sees it as a threat to its own interests and influence. In particular, China is concerned about India's growing relationships with the United States, Japan, and Australia, which it sees as part of a broader effort to contain China's rise. Military strength. China views India's military strength and defense modernization efforts as a challenge to its own regional dominance. India has been investing heavily in its military capabilities and is seeking to upgrade its defense infrastructure, including its fighter jets, submarines, and missiles. China is concerned about the potential impact of India's military modernization on its own strategic interests and is working to counter India's military capabilities. Economic competition. China and India are both major emerging economies, and they compete in a number of areas, including trade, investment, and technological innovation. China sees India's economic growth and increasing ties with other countries as a challenge to its own economic interests. In particular, China is concerned about India's efforts to diversify its trade relationships and reduce its dependence on Chinese imports. Tibet and Dalai Lama. Another area of tension between China and India is their differing views on Tibet and the Dalai Lama. China considers Tibet to be an integral part of its territory and accuses India of providing a platform for Tibetan separatists and creating instability in the region. India, on the other hand, is home to a large community of Tibetan refugees, including the Dalai Lama, who is seen as a spiritual leader by many Tibetans. China views India's support for the Dalai Lama as a direct challenge to its control over Tibet and considers it a significant source of tension in the bilateral relationship. Taiwan. China considers Taiwan to be a part of its territory and opposes any country that recognizes Taiwan as a separate and independent state. India's growing economic and strategic ties with Taiwan are seen as a challenge to China's One China policy, and China has been working to limit India's engagement with Taiwan. Regional leadership. Finally, China sees India's increasing role in regional organizations such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) and the Quad, US, Japan, Australia, India, as a challenge to its own leadership in the region. India's growing influence and diplomatic efforts in the region are viewed as a threat to China's regional interests, and China has been working to counter India's influence through its own diplomatic efforts. In conclusion, China sees India as a major challenge in a number of respects, including border disputes, geopolitical influence, military strength, economic competition, Tibet and the Dalai Lama, Taiwan, and regional leadership. Despite these challenges, there are also areas of cooperation between the two countries, and both China and India are working to manage their differences and build